We're responding to a condition that's being created by the incentive in the economy. So as long as the dominant incentive says, yes, overuse the resource, then naturally we're going to then try to step in as government to try to protect that resource. Incentives lead to behavior, and that needs to be clear. And right now, the incentive of the gross domestic product is to overuse Earth. And right now, we require 1.7 planets every year to provide our needs on Earth. So we're well beyond the ability of natural systems to replenish themselves, and the gross domestic product that we're using today in 2019 says go, go, go. Keep using it up. And all the money we spend in remediation, all the money we spend on filtration and permitting and hearings and monitoring protests and all these things, all the money spent around all that activity is showing up as a good, when in fact it should be showing up as a cost. If people want to leave a healthier world for their children, we need to change from the gross domestic product to an alternative signal, because the gross domestic product does not recognize limits on Earth. It's a growth imperative. The gross domestic product sets pricing, so when people go into stores and they see the prices on items, that's predicated on the gross domestic product. So that's an important discussion, because everybody shops, everybody's spending money. Everybody sees 2 for 1, 50% off, buy one, get one free. These are all incentives to keep buying stuff, right? That's for people low income or high income, either way. But generally, one of the main reasons I'm doing this, of course, is to restore our relationship with this habitat, Earth, to make sure we're healthy and in balance. And the gross domestic product doesn't really care about that. And the gross domestic product has been generally gamed by about 13 powerful countries on Earth. They know how to use it very effectively, generally countries that are major consumers. And we should mention, 20% of the world's population is consuming 80% of the world's resources right now as we speak in 2019. And they're using the gross domestic product as their primary signal. And then the other piece of the puzzle is the gross domestic product sets interest rates and it sets budgeting. And if we go 2 negative quarters of GDP in the US, it's a signal for a recession. And recession generally is code for austerity. And austerity is generally code for giving from those that have the least to giving those that have the most. That's the gist of austerity. And that's what a lot of the uprisings around the world are happening right now, is people are upset at austerity programs. Understandable. But the thing is that the gross domestic product give you an example. Let's just take the Minnesota River watershed. For 80 years, the gross domestic product said grow food for volume. It's a quantity-based measurement. So it says grow as much as you can in that watershed. And we did. In Minnesota, we grew a lot of food in the Minnesota River watershed. But there's no indicator in the measurement that said this groundwater cannot replenish itself or this topsoil cannot replenish itself. In the genuine progress indicator, probably mid-late 1960s, it would have said, whoa, slow down or stop, because this practice of growing food is now costing us because this watershed cannot replenish itself. So where the gross domestic product does not recognize limits, the genuine progress indicator does. Because what happened was in the mid-late 60s, we started to see activity, government activity around the United States, especially, and around the world, starting to have to remedy some of this overuse of Earth, watersheds, contamination, things like that. And so governments basically started to develop environmental policy acts, environmental protection agencies, Clean Water Acts, Clean Air Acts, Endangered Species Act. All of that government activity in the gross domestic product, since money was being spent, shows up as a credit on the spreadsheet, as a benefit, as a positive. In the genuine progress indicator, those would be considered what are known as defensive expenditures, money you spend on things to protect yourself or save your life. And so in the genuine progress indicator, instead of seeing these government activities as a credit, it's seen as a cost. When you shift from a credit to a cost on a spreadsheet, you change incentive and you change behavior. Now it becomes less attractive to overuse the watershed, and then inherently, based upon the scale, since this is a macro activity, macroeconomic signal, the scale of the activity starts to change. And the incentive starts to lead towards more restorative, regenerative practices in growing food inherent to the economy. You don't have to grovel, you don't have to get tax breaks or rebates or anything like that. It happens inherent to the economic incentive to start growing in ways that are healthy and maintain the integrity of the groundwater and the soil and the diversity of species. Now our children can grow up in systems that create incentives so they can still grow their food without overusing their habitat. If you want less government, less taxes, and less regulations, and you want sustainability, that's where the intersect takes place. Because if you go beyond that watershed's ability to replenish itself, you are always going to have more government and more and more and more. And you're never going to have sustainability. It's not physically possible. This is where they should be going, towards the genuine progress indicator. Otherwise, if we keep in the same system and the same incentives that we're using now in the gross domestic product, they're going to use up these watersheds and use up their groundwater, and no one's going to know why, other than basically because we said it was good for the economy.
Hey, buddy. You gonna pay for that or what? Look, buddy, I don't want no hassle today. Either pay for it or put it back.